Hey everyone, Brian here from Rival. Today we're going to fit our Rival Defender doors to the new 2023 model because there's been some modifications to the bike and we've come up with a really good way to be able to back fit the bikes. So stay tuned, we'll go ahead and we'll get it fitted. Okay, so first up what we're going to do is we're going to take this net off from the rear doors. Okay, to do that we're going to have to take these two plastic plugs here at the back here. We're going to pull that off. There's a screw here. Okay, we're going to take this cover off and then take all the fitting points for the net off. And then also the latch that actually holds the net closed. We're going to take that one off as well, but let's keep a hold of the genuine spaces that are in here. We're going to reuse them later when we mount our latch in. Okay, so this is what I was saying before. We're going to take these two screws out here, but we're going to keep the spaces that come from here. Okay, then once we've done that, we're just going to pop this back of this seat out. Okay, and then we're going to undo these two bolts down here. Two 10 mils, and then there's one bolt up here which is a torque head, and then this whole shoulder bracket is going to come off. So this is the bracket that we've come up with to make the new 2023 models fit with our existing doors. Okay, because previously Can-Am used to weld this nub here onto the actual frame, whereas now they've changed the design on some of the 2023 models, not all of them, and they're actually welding this part to the shoulder guard. So what we've done is we've come up with this fix. Okay, so if your bike actually has this nub already welded onto it, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, you can just discard this part, or it may not even ship with your order. But if you do need this part, what you have to do is there's a bolt here, which is the top bolt out of there. Okay, and you just have to drill through here. We take this pop rivet out, and we'll put a bolt and a nut through here, which will then allow this to mount on here like that, and then replicate the original welded nub that used to be there. So now that that's loose, we'll just get a punch and we'll punch that rivet out. You may have to use a bit bigger drill bit and take that head off. It just depends on how the rivet undrills for you. But basically you just need to get that out and turn that hole into a 6mm, 7mm hole so that you can get the bolt through. So we've got our bracket on here. So what we did is, as I said before, we drilled this out to a bit over 6mm, 7mm hole. Okay, we've taken a 6x25mm bolt. We've taken a large 6x25mm washer and put it in from the back because there's a bit of plastic there, so we want to put a nice big washer on there. Okay, and we've got some smaller 6mm washers on here and nuts. And we've reused the OE bolt here. Okay, but we've added one of the 6x18mm washers. So the washer that'll be in the kit is a smaller one, but it just gives us a bit more coverage and a bit more strength when we bolt it on. Okay, so the next bracket we're going to fit is this bracket. Okay, so to get there we need to be able to get in at these bolts, because what this does is this part here slides over the top of here, and then that part there slides in there. So unfortunately though, to do that we're going to have to cut this plastic. Okay, so there's two ways to do this. The easiest way is just a heated up box cutter or a Sawzall if you've got one, and we're just going to cut this plastic here and then cut the plastic back. Okay, this allows us a lot of easier access. You can just trim it down here and slide it in too. It just makes it a bit harder on your hands. We've now undone, we've trimmed that plastic back there. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to undo these OE bolts out. We're going to take them out. So take one out at a time. Okay, so we're just pushing them out. You might have to use a ratchet or a drill just to bring them out. And then we're just going to push this new one in. Okay, but we're going to reuse the original nuts. But what we have to do first is we take two of these big thick spacer blocks on each bolt, and we're just going to slide them on. Okay, and then just sit the nut on here gently, and then what's going to happen is we're going to slide this bracket on, because see how this here is opened up, so we're going to slide that on so that the spacers are on this side facing outwards away from the bike, and we're going to slide that on like that. Okay, and then we're going to take our 6x35 and put it through here, and then that then re-replicates the shoulder guard. Rightio, so now we've gone and we've got this put on, we can go ahead and reinstall our plastic cover here, and then we've got another bracket that we're going to put on here that comes around from there. Every now and then you may have to loosen this off and adjust this in and out, but very rarely. Okay, there is a lot of adjustment in these doors just to allow for differences in the doors and then differences also in the bikes. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and slide that back on, make sure that bottom bit goes in, and then just put our plastic pins back in at the back. Okay, so this is E1 or E2. Okay, to know which side goes on, this part here with the little lip coming up, it is upwards. Okay, and we're going to take 2 of our M8x20s and with our 24mm washers, and we're going to install this here at the back. Rightio, we're just going to leave that there loose for the time being, and then we're going to go and get another bracket that has to fit on here. Okay, so this is our bracket B1 or B2, depending on which side you're doing. Okay, and this one is a little bit tricky. So this is a big spacer, and what we're doing is we're trying to pick up this bolt hole down here. So there's a threaded nut, okay, that's a genuine part of the bike. So we've got a big 6x70mm bolt, okay, with a washer. We're going to put that spacer over like that, and we just have to try and not drop that spacer off as we go in. And then just start that off thread, and then what we do is then go back and we've got 2 8mm holes here that are on or welded nuts, and then 2 8mm here that have got, you'll need washers and a nut from behind. Okay, so we put the door pin on here. So now the next step is to actually swing our door. So what we're going to do is we've got these triangular nuts that have got welded nuts on the back, and we've got our bracket. So what the idea with this is our nut is going to go in underneath here like this, and our bracket's going to go on top, and then we've got our 20mm bolts, and we've got a 6mm washer, and then we've also got some spring washers on here too to make sure that they stay tight on the trail. We're just going to install these. Okay, now what the beautiful part of this is it gives us a lot of adjustment, both up and down and in and around. Okay, so when we actually go to lining the door up, okay, and getting it to close nicely, that will play a pivotal role in all of your adjustment. Okay, so we've already gone ahead, and these are 2 separate brackets. So we've gone ahead and we've put the 6mm by 15mm bolts here, okay, and we've got our door striker pin, which has got 2 nuts on either side. Okay, so we just feed it through here, and what that allows you to do is you've got adjustment that way in the actual bracket itself, and you've got adjustment that way in the slotted pin hole. Okay, and then as we discussed before, we're going to reuse our original spacers that we pulled out of here, and we're going to take our long 6mm bolts here. It's a little bit of a juggle, okay, and we just go straight back into those original holes. Then we take an 8x20 and we pick up this other OE hole that's shredded up here. Okay, now we'll tighten both those down, okay, and then we can adjust it once we get about, go ahead and do the fun part and actually swing the door. Okay, so last part, we've got our door pin on. Okay, so now we're just going to hang our door. So we've done these up firm but not tight, so that we've got a bit of movement so that we can get into the right position. Then we're going to tighten it down, go back, tighten everything up, and then our swing should be perfect. We're just going to slide our door on. Okay. Perfect. So now I'll go back and I'll tighten everything up, make sure my swing's good again, and then we're good to hit the trail. Okay, so we've got the rear doors installed, but what we'll have to do now to get the front doors installed is, if you've already installed this part, we're just going to need to take this striker part here off, because there's a screw here that we need to get undone, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because we need to be able to take this cover off. But before we take the cover off and undo any of the screws, we need to cut this section of the plastic here out. Okay, the easiest way to do that is just with a box cutter that's got a fresh blade in it. I even like to heat the blade up, and it makes cutting it a lot better. You can just heat it up with a cigarette lighter or a barbecue lighter or something like that. So we would just cut that out so that we're allowed to slip our bracket in behind there, and it sticks out this way before we undo any of these screws, because it then holds the plastic in place and makes it a lot easier to cut. So we've cut this out, we've taken our plastic cover off. Okay, so now that we've got our plastic cover off on the front section, we need to go ahead and remove our net. Okay, all the fitting points in the net, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our new upper shoulder bracket like we did on the rear doors. Now we've taken all the net off, we've reinstalled these 2 bottom ones down here too, which you also need to do on the rear doors just to hold the plastic in place. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to undo this shoulder bracket and replace it. So we've got 1 Torx head bolt here, and then we've got 2 10 mil head 6mm bolts down here. We're going to take them out and then install our shoulder bracket. So now we've got our OE shoulder brace off. Same as what we did on the rears, we need to undo these 2 bolts here. Okay, we're going to hold onto the nuts, and we're going to replace them with our M10 by 80s, but we're going to reuse the OE nut. Okay, and a bit of a pro tip too, this seat belt tends to always get in the road as well as on the rear, but if you pull them all the way to extension and then let a bit of a gap out, you can strap it over there, and although they're still there, they're just a bit more out of the road. So just like we've done the rears, we need to drill out this pop rivet. So we just need to drill that head out, get that pop rivet out, and then re-drill that hole to about a 7mm, so that we can get a 6mm bolt through. Okay, because what we're going to do is we're then going to install this bracket here. If you've got the 23 model, as we said previously though, if you've got an older model, this nub will already be welded to your bike, so you can disregard having to do this part. We've taken our 6x25mm bolt. We've drilled our hole here 7-8mm so that we can get, we've got a bit of tolerance there when we put our 6mm bolt through. We've reused the OE bolt that's come out here, but we've included one of our thick 6mm washers just to give it a little bit more pressure on where the actual bolt goes in and actually holds that tight. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our bracket, this bracket here, okay? We've already put our 2 large spacers that come in the kit. They're a thick spacer. Here, let me just take one off quickly. Okay, so we've got 2 spacers like that we put between the bike and this side of the bracket. Okay, so we put the 2 of them on, and then we put just sit our nut on. Okay, and then we can take our, I think it's a 6x35mm bolt that will go through here with a nut and washer. We can sit our bracket on like this, and then sit our shoulder guard on like that, put our bolt through here, and then we can go ahead and we can tighten these bolts up down here and look at reinstalling the plastic. So we've got it all in place now, so we've done these ones up nice and tight again. We've tightened up all of our bolts up here, and we've tightened this one here. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to talk about installing the bracket here and then putting this cover back on. Now we've got all this tight, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this bracket on. So this is where we cut this section out here earlier with our box cutter. So this is a little bit tricky. It's not hard, it's just a bit tricky. So you've got 2 threaded nuts in behind here, okay, that are actually part of the bike. And what we need to do is we need to thread our bracket through there like that, because our bracket will end up sitting like this. Okay, the hard part is getting your fingers in here. So what I like to do is I get a ratchet with an extension on it, okay, and I'm going to just slide my plastic here like this and just push the plastic a little bit to the side, and then just try to get the thread started. Okay, got the top one. Now bottom. So these are just 8x20s, okay, with the hex head, which allows you to use the ratchet like this. So now what I'm going to do is these holes are slotted, so I'm going to do my best to just get it in the middle of the slots, which I'm hoping then I don't need to come back and loosen these off again to swing my front door. The slots are there for for a little bit of added adjustment if needed, because like all bikes are slightly different, and all our doors can have slightly different manufacturing tolerance in them as well. So we just like to add as much adjustment as possible, just to allow for the easiest and the fastest fitting possible. I'm just going to slide our plastic back into place. Okay, and then just put our screws back in that we took out earlier. I still would leave this piece out until you've swung and you're happy with the fitment of your front door, just in case you need to come back, undo this plastic and get in and adjust those bolts up and down on this bracket. So we're just going to, as we said before, we're going to put all these bolts back in, but we can leave this one out because this one bolts through our bracket, and we're going to use this threaded hole here for one of our bolts. Okay, so now we're going to put this bracket here on. But this is, as I said in the rear part, this is a little bit tricky as well, so we just need to get this spacer in here. So this spacer basically sits here and spaces out between the bike and the bracket. So we've got a 6x70mm with a 6mm washer on it. We're going to put our spacer over like that. And then just try and get the thread to take. Okay, just leave it a couple of the threads, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put all our other bolts in. So we've got 2 8mm bolts here and 2 8mm bolts here. These ones are going into threaded holes, whereas these ones will have washers and nuts. Okay, so we've put our bracket on here. So we've put our 8mm Allen heads into the welded on nuts in here, and we've put our bolts and nuts and washers on here and here. Okay, we're going to do them up snug but not tight, because then the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to put our door pin on. Okay, so our door pin is we're gonna have to take these two bolts here out. This bolt's got a bumper mounted to it, but we'll have another bracket that goes in here and bolts through that actually holds the door pin. Some bikes you're able to get these bolts back in, but because the dash is plastic, sometimes if the bike's been out in the field for a little while, the dash may have moved and settled in, and sometimes you may not be able to get those bolts back in. Realistically, they're just for decoration, so you don't have to, but if you can get those bolts back in, awesome. Just drill them back in so that they're there. We do have holes for it in our bracket, but it's 100% not necessary. Okay, so the last step before we actually swing the door itself is this bracket here. So this bracket holds our door pin. Okay, and as you can see here, we've got adjustment in and out here, so that if you want to bring your door in and out, you can. And then we've also got adjustment up and down here on our door pin. As you can see from the back here, it's a slotted hole. Okay, and also with the pin, because it's got the two nuts, you can adjust the pin in and out also. Okay, so this bracket here basically goes straight into here. You've got another cover plate, goes over there like that. Okay, and then we've got some 6mm bolts with some washers, and all we do is find the hole in behind here. As I've said previously, these holes here are not necessary. Okay, because they're a plastic dash, the dash can move, as I said before, and you know, if the vehicle's been used a bit, it can be moved. The dash could have moved, so they're only there for if you can get the screws back in. If you can't, it's not needed. We've got, you know, very thick brackets here that are going to hold everything in place. As we explained on the rear doors, we've put our brackets already on these front doors here. So now all we got to do is go in and we got to swing it and adjust it. As I said, like, these are done up firm but not super tight, so we can adjust it and get the door on. So we're just going to now sit the door here on our bracket. Okay, it's almost perfect. Just going to need to adjust this pin here a little bit. Perfect. So now that I know that it's almost perfect, I'll go back and tighten everything back up again. Okay, make sure everything's nice and tight, and then if any adjustment once I've done that is needed, go ahead and adjust it. As we explained in the other video, most of your adjustment is going to come from here, so loosen these off. It'll give you lots of upwards, down, forward, back adjustment, and then you can start to play with this if need be. But besides that, they should adjust up and you'll have many years of happy trails.